Is this real life?
This is not real life.
I want malaria.
Funny?
It's not funny!
I make videos that are called YouTube poops. I make people say things that are different than what they really said. If you watch long enough, you're bound to hear sources, sees, maybe even source.
Wait a minute. That's the best explanation of YouTube poops that we have? I can do better than that. Now, you see what just happened there? That was called an edit. You see, in reality, I just shot 2 clips. One of me leaving the computer desk, and another one of me sitting down on the bed and talking to you. In an editing software, I took the 2 clips and put them together to make it appear as if I went from one to the other in a fluent motion. If I had done it wrong, it would have looked wrong. And it wouldn't have looked as if I'd gone from one to the other, which would have pretty much ruined the shot. Editing is a very basic part of the filmmaking process, but it's a big determining factor in a film's presentation. Up until recently, however, editing has kind of taken a backstage role and has garnered very little attention from the general public. And can you blame them? I mean, back in the day, editors actually had to cut and splice pieces of film. Not the most glamorous of processes, huh? Well, lucky for us, with the advent of digital media and computer-based editors, editing has begun to take more of a center stage, and nowhere is this more apparent than in YouTube poops. You know those silly little mashup videos you run into occasionally where someone takes a completely innocent TV show or movie and makes the characters say and do inappropriate things? I mean those ones. And maybe with a little bit of discussion, I can explain to you what YouTube poops are, where they've come from, why the genre is allowing for new horizons in a variety of different areas, and why the advent of YouTube poops is such a revolutionary step for video making to take. Join me as we take an in-depth look at YouTube poops. Let's begin with the basics, shall we? After all, how are you supposed to know how important YouTube poops are if you don't even know what they are? Well, some people will say that it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what a YouTube poop is, mainly because the subject matter and tone tend to vary with pretty much every episode. That's why I'm going to paint with broad strokes and say that a YouTube poop is any video where the majority, if not all of the entertainment from the video, comes from the editing. You see, a video editor for a YouTube pooper is much like a canvas for a painter. And a good editor can make even the most mundane of source materials into a comedy classic, and make the funniest of source materials funnier still. Think of the original video as food. It gets fed into the editor, digested, broken up, stripped of its vital nutrients, and rearranged. Then it comes out at the end, gets thrown into the figurative toilet that we call YouTube, and there you go. You have a YouTube poop. Let's take a look, shall we? We will look at a clip from the 1981 American film American Pop, directed by Ralph Bakshi. In this scene, Pete, our main character at this point in the film, is delivering cocaine to some musicians in the studio, where he hopes to pitch some of his new songs. He enters the studio saying,
"Pizza Man, we deliver!"
In this YouTube poop, the subject matter has been changed a bit.
Pizza Man, we deliver! Pizza!
Hey, Muko Man's here. What do you got for us?
You see, the tone has become much more lighthearted, as he is literally selling
Pizza and Coke. Coke.
instead of cocaine, while also trying to sell the musicians
Sauce.
instead of songs. Same video, same performances, but a little handiwork on an editor separates it from the original. Now at this point, you might ask yourself, what what's so funny about pizza and Coca-Cola? And while selling pizza and sauce isn't a joke within itself, it's the fact that the original has been manipulated into something that the original makers didn't intend. And this is where the comedy comes from in these videos. Let's look at another example. The opening cutscene to the obscure Zelda game Link: The Faces of Evil on the Philips CDI. The gist of the opening is this. Link complains about how boring the castle is, gets told otherwise, is warned about Ganon, tries to get a kiss, and flies off the fight. Bad animation, sappy acting, unintentionally hilarious. Now look at the thousands of videos it inspired. Back in the day when I made YouTube poops under the name Hi Mom Slayer, I made quite a few CDI poops. Most of them were sloppy, lazy, and usually revolved around sex. But mine were just a few of the many ideas this 1.5 minute clip has inspired. So when you ask me what YouTube poops are, you may understand why it's hard for me to speak in anything but general terms, as, with this art form, a YouTube poop can pretty much be anything you want it to be. Now, where did this whole craze come from? Well, a lot of people would look and point to the 2006 classic I'd Say He's Hot on Our Tail by Super Yoshi, as it's the first video of its kind put on, well, YouTube. But allow me to dig back a little further. There's the old covering up someone's face with something routine. It does call attention to the fact that the face is not really there, which could technically count. But in those videos, it was used more to cover people's faces up. Some of the stuff Bam Margera did for the CKY videos came close, but many of those clips were just repeating a big hit. But I will give you one reason why I highlighted his early work. This comes from CKY4, the latest and the greatest, from 2002, specifically from the Beastman and Skeletor music video. The song itself was a parody of the perceived homosexual undertones in the He-Man show. But look in the background here. These are clips of He-Man edited to look like he's having sex. Do you know how many YouTube poops are totally revolved around sex? I mean, when I made my videos, that was my bread and butter. So, for the sake of argument, I state that this was the first YouTube poop moment, as the comedy from the clip comes from the fact that it has been edited in a way that the original makers did not intend, and because when these clips are playing, they are the viewer's focus, making a majority of the entertainment from the moment due to the editing itself. But notice I said moment, because this thing does not sustain the whole video. For that, we once again have to look at Super Yoshi, and thus our look at the history of YouTube poops comes full circle. And it's really funny to think that this is the video that started it all, because if you look at it, I'd Say He's Hot on Our Tail really isn't all that good. It's repetitive, minimally edited, and boring. So why did it do so well? Possibly because of how different it was at the time. Possibly because it was one of those, why didn't I think of that, ideas that just needed a kickstart. Either way, Super Yoshi has his place in internet history. Good video, or not. How about those New Horizons I was talking about? Now, you remember when I said that we've never seen this kind of comedy to this extent? For a second, let's think about the definition of a parody. Or at least the way that I see it. It takes an original source, whether it be a song, movie, or TV show, and changes it into something that the makers didn't intend to point out the original's flaws or generally make fun of it. Minus the editing part, the comedy in YouTube poops are essentially the same that you would see in the parody. Because no matter how different you make the video from the original, it's still making fun of it in some way. And in terms of the videos themselves, how are they changing? To answer that, let me introduce you to the 1902 silent classic, A Trip to the Moon. While showing off some impressive visual effects and innovation, its story was not as fleshed out as modern audiences expect. And that was one of the few early films with a developed story. It, like many early films, was short, lighthearted, somewhat plotless by today's standards, and very primitive. Well, that's where the majority of YouTube poops are right now. What happened to filmmaking in general? Better writing, more serious subject matter, and advances in technology which allowed for longer and more ambitious products. And you know what? I think that's where YouTube poops could be heading. Sure, we've seen YouTube poops that have approached this before. The Skooks videos had a flowing narrative from episode to episode with some dark subject matter played for comedy. With some very well done and labor-intensive editing, these videos separate themselves from the pack in terms of quality. Some of the Longer to Things videos have also been similar, though much less dark and following the original story more. And you know what? As a freeform parody, that's totally fine. If these long, well-thought-out videos became more normal, that would be a tremendous step. If these videos were more financially fruitful, then I'm sure these changes would come by quicker. But as a free form of entertainment, we're getting some well-polished classics, and for that, we should be grateful. And now, time for the big question. So what? Who cares if somebody sits behind their computer all day and makes your favorite characters say things they didn't really say? Well, just think about it. Technological advances have allowed for a type of entertainment that we've never really seen before. A type of entertainment that puts editing in the forefront like never before. With YouTube poops, the video that the poop is derived from doesn't totally matter, outside of people being able to recognize it. The editing is what is important. Without good editing, a YouTube poop is worthless. And that's what makes it so fantastic. It's a new ground that, 7 or 10 years down the line, we're still advancing. And as the editors get better, the software is updated, and new material becomes available, YouTube poops will continue to thrive in the world of YouTube. So the next time you watch YouTube poop, remember this. Every mixed sentence you hear, every miscolored clip you see, and every overly loud piece of audio you hear is helping to break new ground in the world of entertainment. And you know what? It's not just breaking new ground in entertainment, it's breaking new ground in art. Because YouTube pooping is an art form, with thousands of artists putting new pieces out daily. Most of the time with little or no compensation aside from public reaction. And one more thing. Keep watching YouTube poops and supporting the art form.